Tom Dwan, no shows, day one of Poker After Dark. Like Hollywood Haxton put on a show and showed everybody just how the great game of PLO Omaha can be played. And Phil Galfond pulled off one of the sickest bluffs of the entire night. All this and more took place last night on day one of PLO After Dark. So what's going on, everybody? My name's Jungleman, aka Chicago Joey. Before we get into it, I want to tell everybody about my favorite PLO Omaha resource at the moment, especially for people learning PLO, people transitioning to PLO, and even PLO players very, very long time. PLO PLO Manual, mentioned this on the podcast with Doug before. Links in the description below to check more out about it. But everyone always says, Poppy, how do I learn PLO? What's the best way? And I think this manual right here is just the best way to start. You start learning how to play, you learn more about the game, and you get out there and you start trying the game out for yourself and get a little taste of the drug known as PLO Omaha. Now, if you do purchase the book this week, let me know. I'm going to be putting together a special PLO group for people to ask questions in there with each other, with myself, with the author of the book, John Beaupre, and more. So more information about that below. So last night, day one, 300-600 pot limit Omaha, 100K minimum buy-in took place on Poker Go. It was originally scheduled to be Tom Dwan, Phil Galfond, Ike, Hollywood Haxton, to King Brian Rass, Ben Lamb, and Brandon Adams. But unfortunately, last minute, Tom Dwan put on Twitter and said that he couldn't come. I think it definitely sucks out there for people that were looking forward to seeing Tom Dwan. I think it sucks for PLO Omaha as a whole, because this is one of the first times the great game has been shown at these high stakes in quite a long time. And I think people wanted to tune in, they wanted to watch Tom play, and unfortunately last minute he cut out, and hopefully he shows up in day two or day three. But either way, I think we had some really good action. We had a couple points of time last night where maybe there was a little bit of lull in action, but I think that had to do more of what the table makeup was. And then Jungleman got in the mix towards the end. The table talk picked up, the action picked up, and we're going to take a look at a couple of the big hands today. So each player started off with 100,000, and we got the stack sizes to end the night here. Hollywood Haxton was the big winner, up about $180,000. Now at one point, I think he was up about 260. Hollywood Haxton came out the gate. The very first hand that we'll take a look at in a bit, he had set over set against Phil Galfond, and Phil Galfond did a great job just not to lose all his money. I think Ike Haxton had aces approximately 59 million times last night. It seemed like he had a very premium hand very often, and when you give a great player a very premium hand, I mean, he's going to look like a god. So, and Ike Haxton looked like a god last night. Brandon Adams finished up down about $95,000. Ben Lamb and Brian Rast. Ben Lamb up 60,000, Brian Rast up 20,000. Phil Galfond was down about 75,000, and Jungleman picked up a nice $6,500 for his effort. Now I'm pretty sure those are the stack sizes, but obviously I could be off a little bit.
Your friend keeps showing up every year.
Jack 8-4 with two hearts. Fires 2,200, exactly 1/3 of the pot. Both Brandon and Phil call.
Hand starts off three-way, about $115,000 deep. Hollywood Haxton, Brandon Adams, and Phil Galfond. So Hollywood Haxton raises up pre-flop with ace, queen, 10-3, double suited. Beautiful hand. Brandon Adams decides not to 3-bet the ace, 9-3 with the ace, 9 of clubs on the button. And Phil Galfond completes in the big blind with ace, king, 8-2 with king high suit. Flop comes down, jack 8-4, two hearts. Hollywood Haxton's got the nut flush draw, a gut shot straight draw, and a backdoor straight draw as well too. Obviously Brandon Adams has the overpair of aces, and Phil Galfond has the king high flush draw with that middle pair, and backdoor straight draw, and a backdoor Bangkok blocker with the ace of diamonds. So Hollywood Haxton decides to make a continuation bet, about a third pot. Hollywood Haxton did a great job last night, mixing up his sizes. He bet full pot sometimes. He bet a third pot, fourth pot, 75% pot. He was a great job of playing, very unpredictable. And like I said, it was very enjoyable to watch him play. And I feel like anyone out there. So he makes that bet. Brandon Adams makes a very loose call with the ace, 9-3. He does have that backdoor quad draw, but for the most part, yeah, I mean, you can't. I think a lot of people, when they just call with aces pre-flop, they don't really want to fold a flop, myself included. But this might be a board where you could fold, and yeah, I mean, unless you're planning on turning your hand into a bluff on a bunch of different turns, one check two, I don't think it's necessarily the best hand to have here, but I kind of get it. You don't want to fold your aces when you just call pre-flop. Phil Galfond with the king high flush draw and the 8, the backdoor draw. He goes ahead and he check calls as well too.
Pot. And Galfond check raises pot after the bet of 4,400.
So now turn comes down. It's that queen of diamonds. Checks to Hollywood Haxton. He bets 4,400. And now Phil Galfond decides to check pot with his turned backdoor gut shot and his turned backdoor Bangkok. Backdoor Bangkok, of course, is the backdoor nut flush. You got the backdoor Bangkok blocker, so it's a little bit relevant. He doesn't block any 9s or 10s. He also doesn't block any queens or jacks here. I don't know. In the moment, we were doing the live stream rail last night. Very unexpected check raise. They are about 200 big blinds deep. I think that when he does check raise here, I mean, he does have a lot of fold equity straight away, but at the same time, and also he actually does block some hands that Hollywood Haxton might call with. So Hollywood Haxton may have a nut flush draw here with those turned diamonds. He blocks that. He also blocks the king high flush draw, which is another hand that Hollywood Haxton might bet call here. But at the same time, I think Hollywood's going to have enough combination type draws like a queen jack 10 with a flush draw, or maybe even just a set with a 10 or a 9. So I think this is a little bit ambitious of a check raise, but he decides to go ahead and make it. Hollywood thinks about it for a little bit. He's got the double gutter with the ace high flush draw, and he has the queen to potentially decide to turn his hand into a bluff if that board does pair. So he thinks about it, he calls, and we see the river.
We head to the river, which is the 9 of diamonds. $46,000 bet.
And I'm not either.
So now river comes down. It's the beautiful 9 of diamonds for Phil Galfond. Obviously, he probably would have preferred an offsuit 10 to come down, but in terms of a card to continue bluffing on, the 9 of diamonds is going to be a very perfect card. So now the pot's $66,000. He's got a decision. How much do I bet? Me and Jane Andes were talking about it. We kind of expected him to go with a full pot bet, but he decides to go with 46,000. And now you go over to Hollywood Haxton. He's got the straight here. Obviously, not even the nut straight, but at the same time, I think once Phil does check raise the turn and then he bets this river, he's sort of saying, I have 9-10 with a flush redraw, and now I'm betting my flush for value on this river. I think if Phil does just have that bare naked 9-10, he's going to check it over to Hollywood Haxton. So now Hollywood's thinking, you know, what can I really beat? What would Phil turn into a bluff here that I have any chance of beating? He decides to think about it for a while, and I think he makes the right decision. He makes the fold. Phil happened to have one of the hands that he could be bluffing with here, but I think the fold on Hollywood's part was just, you know, it's what you got to do sometimes. You got to make a lay down. You got to fold, and I'm curious what he thought when he saw the hand and what he saw what Phil had. So hopefully I'll be able to talk with both players and kind of get a little bit more about what they were thinking. But overall, it was a good play by Phil. Maybe a little crazy, and I wouldn't recommend trying that at home if you're out there and you're wondering, okay, should I turn this hand into a bluff maybe in a future spot, especially once you're playing this deep stacked Apollo Omaha. Now, you guys know on Poker After Dark, they like to maybe rig some of these hands. So the very first hand we come out, we get a set over set. So Hollywood Haxton raises it up pre-flop, ace-ace, king-10 with the ace-10 of hearts. A preview of what was to come for the night for him. Phil makes a pretty loose call on the small blind, queen-9-9-8 with the queen-9 of clubs. I think a lot of people may fold that hand pre-flop, but Phil decides he's going to call. Flop comes down, ace-9-3, set over set. Phil checks, Hollywood bets, Phil decides check call. I think some people might check raise there, but I think that check calling there this deep is going to be fine.
And he's going to bet full pot, 9,600 here. Knows this game just as well as anyone out there, if not better. Decides to call the 9.
Here's where I think a different person may have lost his entire $100,000 stack, myself included. So checks to Hollywood Haxton. He decides to bet the full pot. And now I think check raising here is perfectly fine. What hands are you going to get called by? Well, you're going to get called by the nut flush draw with the ace. Maybe a hand like a 2 pair with a redraw. What could that redraw be? It could be, let's say, like ace-7, a-10, double suited, maybe with some hearts. I think something like that, that's going to have, sometimes a nut flush draw, sometimes a weak flush draw, but oftentimes still a strong hand. I think that maybe Hollywood Haxton might call sometimes with the bare ace nut flush blocker here too. So I do think that check raising here is going to be fine on many rivers. You are going to be sort of in a weird spot where you're not sure what to do, and you do get value from a lot of hands. But there also is some chance that you potentially do get stacked by top set, which is a hand that Hollywood Haxton has. And it certainly is a hand that he could bet pot on the turn with even without the heart redraw too. He just did happen to have the heart redraw. So he thinks about it. He check calls.
He's beat by only one hand right now. And it happens to be the one that Haxton had, which has improved to the nut flush on the river. Haxton bets pot. Galfond makes the call, and his night not off to a great start.
Now river comes down. It's the king of hearts. Checks to Hollywood Haxton with the nuts still. He decides to go ahead and bet the full pot. So basically, he's saying, I have the nut flush or I have the nut flush blocker. And now this is one of those games in PLO where it's like a call and pray situation. You're thinking to yourself, how often does my opponent have the nut flush here? How often they have the nut flush blocker? And honestly, it's something, if you have the answer to this question, send it to me, please. Let's put it in the Quick Pro Manual because I never know here. You know, it's sort of like you just call and pray sometimes. You click the call button, you pray. And really, that's what it comes down to here is, does he have the ace? Does he have the ace of hearts? And does he have a second heart to go with it? So Phil thinks about it. And really, there's not too much to say about this. It's just in the moment what you decide. Phil thinks about it. He calls. He sees the bad news. And he probably actually is, let's say it's not going to carry away and say he's happy. But he's happy that he didn't lose his entire stack. He only loses about half a starting stack. And he's still in the game. And there were a couple other big hands that did take place. I'm trying to keep this video to a minimum for the most part. So I'm going to go over some of those other hands in an official podcast. It's going to go on my iTunes page. The link will be in the description below to my iTunes. I'm going to break down the check raise on the river by Hollywood Haxton when he had the net flush against Brandon Adams with 10 high flush in that 3-bet pot. I'm also going to break down and I'll probably have Jane Andes on this too, actually. We'll give him a call. We'll do this. Going to break down the King Queen 10-7 hand with Brian Rast in the 4-bet pot when he check called the flop and then had a decision for all his chips on the turn. They got it in 4 times and they ended up chopping it up. So you can find that on my iTunes page, probably up here within the next, probably either in the next day or two, or we'll just put it out on Saturday where we go over a bunch of the hands. And yeah, stay tuned tonight. Poker After Dark, PLO, Day 2, Tom Dwan scheduled to play. It's going to be going down at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I think I'll be back with another live stream, but I'm not positive. Either way, tomorrow, I'll be back with another video, looking at the big hands and going over the action. Thanks a lot, guys. Let me know what you thought about PLO After Dark. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Did you not watch it? And stay tuned for tomorrow's video. And also, make sure you like the video and comment, because likes and comments pay the bills around here. It's not true, but my coach says I got to say that.